Most people skip Matthew 1. You know the passage. It opens the entire New Testament with a list of names. Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob, and most readers' eyes glaze over within 3 verses and jump straight to verse 18 where the actual story begins. But if you skip Matthew 1, you miss something hidden inside it that changes everything you thought you knew about how God chooses people. 5 women are buried in that genealogy. In a world where women were almost never included in a family line, where genealogies were records of fathers and sons, of patriarchal succession, of legal inheritance, Matthew stops 5 times and names a woman. And not just any women. Every single one of them has a story that, by the standards of their world, should have ended in disgrace. Every single one of them should not be there. And Matthew put every single one of them there on purpose. Their names are Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary. And if you have never sat with these 5 names and what they mean together, you have been missing one of the most carefully constructed arguments in the entire Bible about who God chooses and why.
The first name is Tamar. Genesis 38 tells her story, and it is not comfortable reading. Tamar was a Canaanite woman who married into the family of Judah, one of the 12 sons of Israel. Her husband died. Then her second husband died. Judah had a 3rd son who should have married her according to the custom of the time, but Judah was afraid he too would die. So he sent Tamar away and told her to wait for a husband who never came. Tamar waited and waited. And when she understood that Judah had no intention of keeping his promise to her, she did something desperate. She disguised herself as a prostitute, waited by the road, and when Judah passed by, not recognizing her, she offered herself to him. She became pregnant by her own father-in-law. When Judah discovered she was pregnant, he ordered her burned for prostitution. And then she produced the pledge he had given her, proof that he was the father. Judah's response is one of the most startling lines in the book of Genesis. He said, "She is more righteous than I am." More righteous. A woman who disguised herself and deceived her father-in-law. More righteous. Because she did what she did to secure justice for herself in a situation where no one else would. God did not overlook Tamar. He put her in the line of Jesus.
The second name is Rahab. She is not a widow seeking justice. She is not a woman wronged by circumstances. She is a prostitute in the city of Jericho, the first city the Israelites were to conquer when they entered the Promised Land. She ran an inn, which is probably a polite way of saying she ran something else. She was a Canaanite, a member of the very people group that Israel was commanded to drive out. By every possible measure, Rahab was an outsider. But when the Israelite spies came to Jericho, they ended up at her house, and Rahab made a decision that changed her story permanently. She hid the spies on her roof under stalks of flax. She lied to the soldiers who came looking for them. She made a covenant with the spies, a scarlet cord in the window, and when the walls of Jericho fell, her house alone was left standing. Hebrews 11 puts her in the hall of faith alongside Abraham and Moses. James 2 uses her as an example of faith that works, and Matthew 1 puts her name in the genealogy of Jesus, a Canaanite prostitute, in the line of the Messiah, because she believed and she acted on what she believed. And God does not forget that. If you are finding connections here you have never seen before, take a second and subscribe so you do not miss what is coming. This story is just getting started. The third name is Ruth. Of all 5 women, Ruth is perhaps the most beloved. Her book is one of the most beautifully written in the entire Old Testament. But her foreignness is the whole point. Ruth was a Moabite. The Moabites were a people group that traced their origin to an act of incest recorded in Genesis 19. Deuteronomy 23:3 explicitly states that no Moabite shall enter the assembly of the Lord. And yet, Ruth is in the line of Jesus. She came to Israel with nothing, a widow, a foreigner, from a people the law excluded. She attached herself to her mother-in-law Naomi and said the words that have outlasted empires. Where you go,
I will go. Your people shall be my people, and your God shall be my God. Ruth 1:16. She arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. She gleaned in the fields of a man named Boaz. Boaz noticed her. He protected her. He redeemed her, buying back the land and the family line that had been lost. And from Ruth and Boaz came a son named Obed, who was the father of Jesse, who was the father of David, the greatest king Israel ever had, through a Moabite widow who should have been excluded by law. The fourth name is the one Matthew handles most carefully. He does not write her name. He writes instead, David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. The wife of Uriah. Not Bathsheba, Uriah's wife. Matthew is doing something deliberate here. He is making sure you do not forget the man whose name should not be in this story, but whose shadow falls across it anyway. Because this entry in the genealogy is not just about a woman. It is about the worst thing a king ever did. David saw Bathsheba bathing on a rooftop. He sent for her. She had no power to refuse a king. She became pregnant. David had her husband Uriah killed to cover it up. The child born from that night died. The prophet Nathan came to David and told him what God thought of what he had done. And God's judgment
on David was precise and painful. But God did not abandon David, and God did not erase Bathsheba from the story. From David and Bathsheba eventually came Solomon, the wisest king Israel ever had, the man who built the temple. God took the worst moment in a king's life and did not pretend it did not happen. He put it in the genealogy, named the victim by the name of the husband who was killed, and kept building. Take a moment, like this video, and share with someone you love. The fifth name is Mary. And if the previous four names have done their work in your understanding, then Mary's position at the end of this list takes on a completely different weight. Because Mary, like the four women before her, has a story that should have ended in disgrace. She is engaged, but not yet married. She is pregnant. In the culture of first century Israel, the penalty for what this looked like was death by stoning. Joseph, when he discovered she was pregnant, planned to divorce her quietly, the kindest option available to him, because he assumed what any reasonable person would have assumed.
But unlike the previous four women, Mary did not act out of desperation or deception or foreign loyalty or tragic circumstance. Mary said yes to the angel Gabriel, to the impossible, to a pregnancy that she knew would look like scandal to everyone who did not know what she knew. She said, "Let it be to me according to your word." Luke 1:38. And she carried the one that all four women before her had been pointing toward, the one whose genealogy they had been building, for 9 months in her own body. 5 women. A Canaanite widow who secured her own justice by deception. A Canaanite prostitute who hid enemy spies on faith. A Moabite widow who should have been excluded by law but chose loyalty. A woman whose name Matthew refuses to speak without also speaking the name of the man who wronged her. And a young woman who said yes to a story that would look like shame to everyone around her. 5 women. A Canaanite widow who secured her own justice by deception. A Canaanite prostitute who hid enemy spies on faith. A Moabite widow who should have been excluded by law but chose loyalty. A woman whose name Matthew refuses to speak without also speaking the name of the man who wronged her. And a young woman who said yes to a story that would look like shame to everyone around her. Matthew did not put these women in the genealogy as an afterthought. He put them there because the story of Jesus was not going to begin with a list of the righteous and the respectable and the expected. It was going to begin with a list of the people no one would have chosen, and show that God had been choosing exactly these kinds of people all along. Your broken story is not a disqualification. It may be a genealogy entry,
The God who put Tamar and Rahab and Ruth and the wife of Uriah and Mary in the line of his son has never been in the business of choosing the obvious candidate. He has always been in the business of choosing the one who should not be there. If this opens something up for you, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear that their story is not over. Please keep us in your prayers. God bless you.